Hey everyone, this is Josh Childress here, former NBA player turned real estate investor. Catch me on the Jesse T Show.
Josh, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to connect with you, man. We share some common connections, and they saw fit to put us in touch with one another, and just one beautiful conversation after another led us to this point. So for the few people in the world that haven't heard the name yet, tell the world a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you got going on today.
Yeah, so Josh Childress, originally born in Compton, California, born and raised, and I ended up going to Stanford to play basketball for 3 years. After that, spent about the last 15 years playing professional basketball. Played in Atlanta, Phoenix, Brooklyn, Japan, Australia, Greece. So I've been all over the world with the game of basketball, and now transitioning into the real estate investing space. And so I've been doing that for about the last 2 years on a professional level and really enjoying it. It's been a great journey, great learning experience, and hoping to continue to grow in that space.
Man, I want to touch on a lot of that, and I know where your head and your heart's at today with real estate and everything. And so with your growing up, talk about Compton, because you hear, I grew up in the '90s, and listening to Tupac and Dr. Dre and NWA and all this stuff, and you hear about how rough Compton can be, right? And just was your experience similar? Did you see some of the same things? And essentially, how did you get out?
Yeah. I mean, they weren't lying in their lyrics, right? Compton is definitely a rough place. I was fortunate in the regard that I had two older brothers that, lived it and breathed it before me. So, they really helped me navigate, where to go and how to operate, and to be frank, like sports was also a buffer. I mean, I was active in sports, early on in my childhood, basketball, baseball, football, all the sports, and that really allowed me to kind of stay insulated from, I think, a lot of the other activities that were going on around me. So Compton is near and dear to my heart, and we'll talk about some of the things I'm working on there later. But it's a rough place.
I grew up in a town called East Boston, and it's pretty rough in its own right. It's if you've heard of Southeast, renowned for being kind of a tough place. Eastie's the same way, and there was always this kind of understanding that if you played sports or if you were doing certain things, some of the gangs or some of the rougher people around there kind of gave you a pass in a sense, like they weren't screwing with you too much. Was that similar for you growing up?
Yeah, absolutely, it was similar. Funnily enough, like we used to play against each other and play together, right? So I'd be up at the park, a little scrawny, 10-year-old kid playing against, some of the most ruthless guys you could meet, and we bonded on the court, and so sports is a unifying game. I mean, it's a unifying activity, and it's no different, from when I was living abroad. I mean, it brings so many different people together, so many different cultures and ethnicities, and people from different walks of life. So that was definitely evident in the city of Compton, and we used to, battle it out on the courts, on a daily basis.
I'm sure there's probably a fine line you have to walk there, because the other side. Like, you're not just battling kids from the neighborhood, you're battling dudes that could end your life, like people that lived in that world. So were there ever any hairy moments where you might be, going at somebody, or you're breaking them down and like you're just dominating them, and then like you have to worry about them like coming after you after the game?
No, we didn't.
No.
I didn't have any of those. Thankfully,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. That's a scary situation for sure. Are you or I should say, have you, like, growing up in Compton, did you ever have anyone like try to like seduce you to that side of things, like bring you over and join a gang or any of that stuff?
no, I
No.
didn't. I mean, like I said, I had two older brothers that, that grew up in the neighborhood. They were, close with and/or friends with and/or had I guess a respect from a lot of the what you would consider, OGs, in the neighborhood. And so that line was never crossed with me, thankfully. But that's a credit to my brothers.
And then before we jump forward to kind of the trajectory from there, were there any moments that you saw that were life changing in terms of any friends that had any issues, got hurt, or any stuff like that while you were there?
I mean, you saw violence. I remember the first time I saw, a gun get pulled out, and I don't think I've ever run as fast in my life as I ran that day.
Feet weren't
Uh,
touching the ground.
I honestly, I feel like my feet did not touch the ground, right? But outside of that, the I had a great childhood, and I can't say that there were moments there that I feared for my life. Outside of that one, but I was pretty far away from that. And I'm thankful that I experienced that because it's made me who I am today.
Yeah, man. Thankful for your brothers and the sport of basketball to be able to kind of insulate you and guide you, and it led you to pretty much the opposite environment to go from Compton to Stanford, where you have princes and princesses and people that are just way out of that normal realm of just day to day. Like, what was that like going from Compton to Stanford?
Massive culture shock. Stanford is its own ecosystem. It's a unique place that I didn't necessarily know what to expect going in, but I felt like as time went on, I was able to assimilate to the culture and thrive there. But my first day on campus, I show up in some 5XL baggy Rockaware outfits.
Oh yeah.
I see Birkenstocks and cargo shorts everywhere. I'm like, where am I, dude? So but it's fun to think back to that, and just the amount of people really successul and or royalty, right, that I was sitting next to in class that I had no idea. So and I think that's the beautiful thing about Stanford is that you can marry a bunch of different cultures into this ecosystem, and everybody seems to get along well and thrive.
Remember that movie back in the day with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, Blue Chips? Ever see that?
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies growing up, and there was just like this idea of like when you played sports, you were catered to and that you got taken care of. Was there any was life easier or harder for you being an athlete on campus?
100% harder.
Yeah.
There is no catering to you at that place. Coach Montgomery was very much of the mindset that you got into Stanford, you can figure it out. And so, we had tutoring for our first quarter on campus, and that was it, unless you needed it. And it was just, you're a man now. So you step into the space, you handle your business in practice, you handle your business in the classroom. If you have issues, we'll deal with it. But you're here to do what you said you were going to do. You're a highly motivated, individual. So come in and work.
So basically, were you a full-time student athlete? Did you have any like a job outside of that, or was it just full school and full basketball?
Yeah, it's pretty much impossible to have a job outside of being a college athlete. I think that's probably why you're seeing so much around paying athletes is
Yep.
It's full time. You're up at 6 a.m. for weights, and after that you get to the breakfast table and get some food, and you're off to class all day. And after all of that, you try and find some time to get some lunch, and you come back later in the evening for practice. All while trying to maintain your GPA and have some semblance of a social life. So it's a full-on gig, and I am 100% behind helping players a little bit more financially, because I think with the amount of effort and intensity that goes into performing at a high level, there's a need to be able to go out and get a nice meal every now and then. I mean, for us, a nice meal was, man, I could go to Boston Market today, right? And it's something that I think is definitely needed in the NCAA.
It's interesting with athletes and specifically and going to college, because it's almost like being a CEO of a company. Your schedule is so fine-tuned, and you have to say no to stuff, and you have to be mindful and protect your time. And there's something happening at every hour of the day. There's always something going on. And so being essentially a mini business owner is really what it is in terms of scheduling, because you're running school, you're running sports, and you're trying to have this quasi, if you can, slice of social life so that you can kind of have that going on. Now, I've heard some things about Stanford in terms of the kind of things that happen in terms of like parties and things that go on there. Are there any moments that stuck out to you in terms of like the most ridiculous thing that you've seen there? Like what stands out to you there?
Not a ton of moments. The one thing I think back to, we just came off a great road win. I can't remember who we played, but it was one of those like, we got to go out and celebrate, right? And I'm not a drinker, but I was going to go out and just enjoy this time with my teammates. So we walk up to the frat house, and the guy standing at the door looks super familiar. So he's like, "Hey, Josh, what's going on, man? How you doing? Come on in." And I didn't realize it until afterwards. It was Ben Savage from what's the TV show? Boy Meets World, I think.
Boy Meets World, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like random. He's just at the door at the frat house letting people in, and Josh, come on, man, great to see you. But outside of that, I mean, we had, we had our fair share of fun, and tried to make sure that there was a balance in our lives. But 100% you're there to work. You're there to compete at a high level and perform in the classroom, and make the most of the opportunity that you're given.
Going to school, becoming who you are as a person, and you're growing in your professional career towards your professional career that started with sports, and then you're surrounded with children of celebrities or potential celebrities themselves, right? And you're surrounded with royalty and like all these different people that are already millionaires at a young age. How was that feeling? Did you feel like this was the place that was was it daunting? Was it too much, or did you kind of like delve in and like really vibe with that community?
I can say that I was probably a bit naive to it all. Coming from where I came from, I didn't understand it. I didn't know who was who, and I didn't really care at that time. I was about, this person is a good person. I enjoy being around them.
Nice.
But having those sorts of relationships and those people, next to you, was pretty interesting. But also, having they used to call Millionaire Row, all these successful Silicon Valley investors and individuals, sitting front row at all your games was also, a dynamic that I don't think a lot of other, universities experience. And so, going to some of these individuals' house for dinner, getting to meet them, getting to understand how they were successful, what they were involved in, was probably more fun for me than, the classmates that I had that were, potential royalty or, come from successful families.
Did you tap into that community either while there or since now, current day, like Silicon Valley and some of those relationships that are out there?
I've tried to. I'm not operating in the same space, but I've met with a fair amount of those people. And when I was at Stanford, those were the glory days of the program. And so anytime I reach out to anyone, I'm welcome with open arms, and they're always very helpful in any capacity that can be. But yeah, I'm trying to forge my own path here, and we'll eventually be one of those guys that's looked at as a major success story on the business side. So I tap in when I need to, but I'm all about building my own.
Love it, man. You're a Titan. You're gonna be amongst the Titans. So with the obviously you're playing ball, you're in college, you're looking at the next step. Did you always know in your heart growing up, and was it confirmed in college that you knew you were going to go to the next level?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I didn't really grasp it until my junior year of college, when I got injured. I came back, I had some success, and we talked about my older brothers earlier, and talked about their ability to insulate me from things. I started to hear about them having conversations with agents and interviewing, and people reaching out to them. So I never really had to deal with any of that. And that it wasn't until then that I realized that I had a shot to make it to the next level. I mean, guys, obviously, there's draft boards and there's speculation and all that stuff, but I was so keyed in on, just trying to, be the best I could, at Stanford, that it didn't really, come into my mental space until, later in my junior year.
And so now your junior year is here and you're like, okay, this is starting to kind of come to fruition. You're starting to get excited about it. Once you kind of get through your time at Stanford and your first foray into the league, what was that transition like in terms of just being a young kid with your first job? It just happened to be a sport that you love, but like, what was that transition like with that? And then some of the learnings of your first year.
Oh man, it was a crazy transition. You go from your stipend check being $1,500 to $2,000 for the quarter to now signing a 4-year $11 million deal, right? And so obviously there's a big change there.
Yep.
And the responsibilities that come with that as well. And so I wanted to make sure that I was smart about it, but you can want to be as smart as you possibly can, but you come from humble beginnings to then some guaranteed money. You want to have fun. I was 21 years old. I splurged probably more than I should have.
What did fun and splurging look like for you in the beginning?
I bought a couple cars, watch, house. I had money in my bank account, right? So
right.
I spent probably too much time at the mall,
shutting it down, just going in early before the mall even opened.
Oh yeah, man. The lady at Gucci had me on speed dial.
I believe it.
It was what it was, but that's part of being young and coming into money and not understanding the power of it. So I'll tell you one thing: my agent at the time negotiated 25% of my contract up front, right? And this was something that they did, for most of their clients. And I had done the calculations. I was like, okay, great. I'm going to have this check, man. It's going to be awesome. Put this in my bank account. And I got the check and, saw Uncle Sam for the first time, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was so
greedy
pissed
uncle.
How did he just take so much from me before I even touch it? But yeah, that was my first exposure to taxes. And it's been an interesting ride with Uncle Sam since.
Damn greedy uncles, man, just coming out of the woodwork. Speaking of people coming out of the woodwork, did you have any of the you hear about these horror stories of like people trying to take advantage of you now because they have money, whether it's like your group, I know you surround yourself with good people, but were there any people trying to come at you, trying to like get money out of you?
Not too bad.
Okay.
Most of my close friends actually were pro ball players or, made it professionally.
Yep.
So we all kind of had our own thing going. You had your one-offs here and there. Once again, my brothers kind of helped me with that. But, for the most part, I was able to sidestep a lot of that, early on in my career.
What was your favorite city to play in, just in terms of just the vibe, the environment, the people, the fans, and the actual team itself?
Oh man, I loved playing. Well, I loved coming back to the Bay Area, so playing at Oracle. I loved Toronto. Toronto is a great city, and coming back home to LA. That was also always great. Those times I'd buy a fair amount of tickets and bring people to the game. But those three. Playing at Staples Center against Kobe and the Lake Show, which was awesome, and it was just a fun time, man.
Who was the person you look forward to playing against the most, whether it was like you knew it was going to be a battle or just someone that was just energetic and fun and playing against? Who was that person? Was it Kobe, or who was the person that stood out for you that was kind of that ideal dream matchup for you?
Dream. I wouldn't say I had a dream matchup, but I enjoyed when Kobe, when Allen Iverson, when LeBron, when their teams came to Atlanta, because we didn't necessarily have a massive fan base at the time. Our games were usually pretty empty.
Yeah.
But when they came, it sold out, right? And so we were playing in front of a packed house, majority obviously of their fans, but still it was just good to kind of have that environment coming from Stanford, where all our games were sold out, to then our arena, Phillips Arena at the time was usually pretty empty. So I loved when those guys came into town and we got a chance to match up against them.
It's funny you bring that up. My first professional sales job coming out of the military was here in Atlanta. and I was selling coupons, basically business to business. And these coupons were tickets for the Hawks games, the Thrashers, tickets for like going to Hilton Head Island on a vacation, going to see a timeshare. And it was just like this really fun and interesting company. But it's crazy that you bring it up, because part of the pitch, and I'm so sorry to say this, but part of the pitch was like, come see Kobe player, come see LeBron player. And it's like, it sucked because you want to root for the home team. But as soon as someone says, oh, the Hawks suck or whatever, you're like, yeah, but you can see LeBron play. So I lived it. And hopefully I was responsible for a few people that showed up to the games that did. So, but very cool, brother. So you got to have that experience, and it took you around the world. And I'm assuming, just, and I know this based on my experience going around the world a little bit in the military, but what was that like for you, still kind of being younger, growing up and seeing the world and leaving, California, and obviously you start bopping around to different parts of the country in the NBA, but then you start to go international. And I could remember a little bit about like kind of that time trajectory for you. What was that like when you left, even just kind of the continental, the US, and like you decided to go abroad? What was that? And what was the decision behind that too?
Yeah, so I'll give you the backstory on the decision first, and then I'll tell you about the rest. But the decision really centered around leveraging an opportunity to sidestep the restricted free agent process, right? And so the Hawks ended up hiring a new GM that didn't have a relationship with me at all. He came in, he said, "Hey, I'm tasked with re-signing you guys, making sure that we keep the team intact, but I need you to go out and test the market." And so me and my agent spoke. We ended up doing that. Came back with two teams that I thought could be a good fit for me if the Atlanta thing didn't work out. And he basically shot both of those down. So I was stuck because I didn't know what they were going to do. And I was kind of on the back burner from his perspective. And I got this random call out of Greece. So my agent kind of did some due diligence. We talked to the guys, met with them in Vegas. And they basically sold me on this club being one of the most storied clubs in European basketball history, and that I should come take a look. So ended up going out there in the middle of summer, which Athens in the middle of summer is one of the best places in the world, and loved it, right? And I got a better understanding of them, what the team was about. And so I went back to the GM and said, "Hey, this is an opportunity. You told me to test the market. I did. What do you think?" And he didn't really give us much back, so I ended up signing a deal. And it was controversial from the perspective that I was in my prime in the NBA. We just made the playoffs for the first time in who knows how many years, and I had an opportunity to re-sign and continue to build that foundation with the team. And I didn't necessarily feel the love from that current GM, which was partly emotional, but partly just I had to do what's best for me and my career and my family. And so I had a chance to go over and make what I'd make in 3 years over there that I would make in 5 years here.
Wow. Okay. So they pay more over there.
Yeah, well, there's a tax incentive because the teams actually pay your taxes in the country.
Beautiful.
So I was able to save some dollars there, and I then came back and ended up signing the same deal that I probably would have signed with Atlanta and Phoenix. But living abroad was definitely a culture shock once again, but it broadened my horizons to just a different world, right? I had teammates from all over Europe that, exposed me to their cultures, taught me about their perception of Americans, taught me about, just life in their countries that I never would have experienced, staying in the States. And so, being on 6-hour bus rides to the mountains in Greece, or flying to Russia, in the middle of the winter, and all these things that we were able to do. I visited so many countries. My passport was full, and I did that while getting paid. So it was a pretty cool experience overall.
Beautiful way to experience life, meet new cultures, new customs, new ways. I mean, I had some similar experience myself with going in the military and seeing different places, and it was beautiful. And the other thing about it is, you said, was it 15 years you spent total playing pro ball?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you're leaving any career, but specifically sports, and there's this weird thing about sports in the military that parallel. So, um, you're wearing a uniform, you're wearing a jersey. It symbolizes something. There's a respect. There's a camaraderie there. There's your teammates. And so the same thing for the military. You're wearing your uniform. You have this. Most people have like a certain way they look depending on what part of the country. And some people hate when you're in the military, like especially Norfolk, Virginia Beach, if you're in the Navy. but other places, they look up to you. And it's like, from there, you have, your battle buddy, so to speak, or your team, if you're on a team. And so those things are hard to walk away from. So how was that transition where you had this, 15-year career and you had your uniform, your jersey, so to speak? How was it hanging that up and then stepping into the next phase of your career?
It's ingrained in you pretty early on that it doesn't last forever, right? And some guys get it, some guys don't. I was one of the ones that got it, and so I wanted to make sure that, when it was time for me to stop, I was ready for the transition. So I had something to step into. A lot of guys don't have that luxury, unfortunately, either via, not being, as smart with their dollars, or just not having the mental capacity to take on, other avenues of work, right? Whether it be business or investing or the like. And so I had a soft plan, for a number of years. I probably played, let me back up. Mentally, I geared up for this. I ended up getting released from the Pelicans. I had my second sports hernia surgery. After that, I was like, all right, it's time for me to go back to Stanford and finish my degree. So I went back in the spring quarter, did spring and summer quarter there. I did 20 units each quarter, which, like, when I was in school, I never did more than 12 just because of time, right?
Yeah. So you were getting after it.
I was getting after it because I wanted to finish this in 2 quarters. It was there that I actually redeveloped my passion for the game of basketball, having injuries and all that stuff. And so, I now had this foundation from an educational perspective that I could, go out and obviously, get a job if I needed to. But I then added another 5 years to my career after that. And so, like, mentally, I had already, planned to stop there. I got my degree, I was done. And then I had another 5 years of playing. So in that 5-year period, I was exposed to a bunch of different things, some I liked, some I didn't. But that gave me a runway to then, press play once I was finished, and go full steam ahead. So, I was very fortunate in that regard.
I know you're a super sharp guy and smart guy for all the things that we've talked about, but did you have any mentors, any advisors, whether they were friends, whether they were professionals, wealth managers, like giving you insights to some of these things that you're able to add to, like, what the next step would look like?
One individual in particular is a guy named Tony Jans. So I ended up playing over in Australia, and part of my contract negotiation was, hey, I'm not coming over here to make money. I was still getting paid by Phoenix. I'm coming over here to learn from individuals. I want to play ball. I want to, be effective in that regard and, do my job. But you have to introduce me to business people in Sydney, 100%. And I met a number of people and ended up hitting it off with Tony Jans. And he's now a close family friend and, has been my mentor ever since. So, he really exposed me to investing at a higher level. He's a former Carlisle guy, professional, who just knows how to do it at a high level. And he helped me grow in a multitude of ways, from a business perspective and just mentally, like, just helping me understand things in a different way. So he's who I tap as my mentor.
Beautiful. You can't do it alone. You can run, I'm still kind of like a wannabe athlete and I like to run and I do these little races and stuff like that. And it's one of those things where I've learned that in those moments, in those races, because I want to go fast, I can't have anybody with me. Like I remember inviting like 20 people to come to this like obstacle course mud run thing. And then like I just took off on everyone. I didn't spend any time with them. And I'm like, that's like the worst idea ever. So like, if you want to go far, you have to have good people around you. But if you want to go fast, you go by yourself. So it's kind of like this weird interplay. But
Yeah.
speaking of, Landspire Group and what you're doing now, was that the next step? Was there something in between that? And talk a little bit about what you're doing today.
That wasn't the next step in my mind. I firmly thought I was going to be in the venture capital space. That's where I spent most of my time, prior. But I invested, in real estate individually over my career. And so I always knew the power of it. And then I started to think about, my scholarship donor at Stanford, this guy named John Arriaga, and his impact on the amount of kids that he was able to send to Stanford. I would have never been able to afford to go to Stanford had it not been for him, right? And so he's a real estate magnate out of the Silicon Valley, probably owns half of the valley.
And only half?
He's a beast, man. He's a beast. And, you walk down this row of champions in the athletic department, and you get to see every athlete on campus and who their scholarship donor is. And he was probably 75% of those athletes scholarship donor.
Wow.
And, Stanford isn't cheap, right? So
right.
He planted the seed early, and I didn't necessarily get it until, I'd invested. I saw the benefits. I saw the tax benefits, and really the tangibility of it, and that for me was what prompted it, in addition to the opportunities on legislation, right? And there being a massive increase in the wealth of the wealthy via that program.
Yep.
And most of the communities at large would probably not benefit. Most of the community stakeholders probably would not benefit from what was about to happen. So I called my former college teammate and roommate, Justin Davis, and we spoke about it at length for a while, and figured that if there was an opportunity to create this change in some of these inner cities, in some of these areas that really need it, why not have it be from people who lived in there and lived in those areas, and have grown up in those areas and understand the dynamic of the people and the residents, and really the impact that we could have. So that's why we started the Landspire Group, and it's to inspire change through land development, and that's what we're doing.
So when you first started kind of tapping into, so just for some context for people that are listening or watching, most of the world's wealth most of the millionaires that have been created in the world has been through real estate. And, I'm a fiduciary, financial planner, investment manager, and I absolutely love real estate because I know the power of it, both, like you said, individually for my own personal stuff, but also for clients. And so you went from having real estate in your own personal portfolio. Was it more like, were you doing fix and flip? Were you doing buy and hold and getting cash flow? Like, what was the strategy then? And then let's talk about real estate syndication, what you're doing now.
So my strategy then was I invested as an LP in a number of deals just because I was still playing and needed to be passive. I did a couple of fix and flips. Bought my first apartment building in 2012, I believe, and saw that it wasn't easy. Especially managing from afar. But I also saw the power of it if managed properly. And so, went through a learning experience there and understood that, now it's a time for me to kind of step into that space a little bit further. So I purchased a commercial property here in Orange County in 2018. And that was kind of my jump into larger properties. That property was large for me.
Yep.
And that then also prompted brokers and individuals across the country to start reaching out based on the size of that asset. And I then started to research potential land development opportunities here in Orange County, and tapped the city of Garden Grove on a project that they had owned, and ended up having some conversations with the local politicians on that, and from there understood that this was a big boys game, and so ended up reaching out to institutional level investor here in Orange County. Said, hey man, this is what we're thinking. We created a site plan for this site. Would love to get your feedback on it. He said, Josh, I think you guys are onto something here. And 3 weeks later, we signed a joint RFP with them for this project. And that was the beginning of Landspire Group. And since then, that project is on hold from the city's perspective. But we're now working on a 300 unit ground up development in Las Vegas. And we have a 75 unit affordable housing project that we're working on in Compton. And we'll probably do a number of other properties in projects in Compton, based on our performance here. And it's essentially just looking to build and grow with great operators and partners, and start to take on some value add opportunities here once we see something that makes sense for us.
It's really amazing how your life experience, has played out to where you could be of service and you can give back. And because someone paid it forward to you with John Arriaga, he was able to help you go to school and get an education and can fulfill your dream. And because you're an amazing dude, you were like, you know what, let me give some of that back. And so you talk about some of these to me, it sounds like a lot of units, right? Like I'm a guy that's on like single family, like multifamily, like by like 2 or 3 units, but like you're talking hundreds of units per place. What is it like getting into those types of deals, going from where you were as a personal investor to now this is the business that not only is bringing in revenue for you and your family, but also like you're helping so many people. What has that leap been like for you?
I feel like I get hit with a fire hose every day, man.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's a lot, and I think that's also part of partnering with great groups, because the company that we partner with, Lion Living, they've put their arm around us and said, hey, learn from us. We are 30 plus years of experience and thousands and thousands and thousands of doors, and we like what you guys are trying to do here. You add value and helping us understand the demographic that we're trying to target, right? But in addition to that, just learn from us. Anytime you need to talk to us, any meeting you want to be in, our lines of communication are always open. And, we've been fortunate to have those sorts of relationships, throughout our 2 years of existence. And, the unit count and the deal structure and all that stuff is the same on a 300 unit deal than it is on a 50 unit deal. It's just about fine tuning your underwriting and, making sure that, all the things are lined up. But, I've learned that early in this game is, same amount of work to do a $500 million deal as it is to do a $5 million deal. And it's just about, just sharpening your skill set and understanding the dynamics of the deal, and taking it down. So
2021 is here, and we're trying to leave the weirdest year ever on history for 2020 in so many ways. What is it that you're looking forward to through the company personally? What keeps you happy when you're what are some other things you're into as well?
I'd say the one thing I'm looking forward to in all of this is just settling down, setting roots. As being a military guy, it's quite nomadic, right? And you never feel settled. And, now COVID has given me a chance to be home, enjoy that, be with my kids, and, just plant roots. And I think that will then help me, in my business significantly, not having to kind of be all over the place. In addition to that, this is going to be a massive growth year for my company. We are about to embark on some pretty cool partnerships in the coming months, and this is the time to grind. I mean, you can't see it here, but I have this Michael Jordan meme on my wall, and I took it personally.
The GOAT.
Yeah. But a lot of my time last year was spent trying to build rapport with people, and some get it, some don't. But those that don't, I take it personally, and I make it my mission now to prove people wrong and to build what I think will be a successful company that I can pass down to my kids. So this is a massive year for us, and I'm looking forward to it.
Talk about legacy and transfer of wealth and taking care of those that come after us, whether they're employees or partners or kids, right? I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my whole goal is to, I grew up in a crazy life and I want them to have the best life. And so what can I do now to help them as they get older and instill values that they'll work hard, but they'll enjoy the fruits of those things, if that makes sense. So what does the Jordan meme say? What is it saying?
You saw the Last Dance, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And it's just him with that thing. It says, I took this and I took it personally. It's just that photo. So
oh yeah.
Anytime I'm speaking to an investor.
Wait, you were there when he did that? When he did no. I was gonna say that's badass, dude.
Oh man. I've met him a couple of times, but yeah, it's his mindset and his mentality towards competing is
ruthless. He would have been one of the greatest conquerors of all time. Like if like Julius Caesar or Marcus Aurelius, all these different people, he'd be that guy. But he's paying for it too. If you watch in The Last Dance, he's kind of sad about some stuff. Like the parallel between him and LeBron, outside of being the greatest players, is like LeBron seems to be doing it right, where like he has friends and people are really excited to be around him. And like Jordan like ostracized a lot of people because he was so fanatical about the game of basketball that he didn't care about anything else. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see that.
And I'd venture to say he's more fanatical about competing and winning.
Yes, that's what it is.
And there's a part of me that understands the LeBron argument, but like you got to respect it, man, because he put in the work and he held people to a high standard, and for that, he's in my mind that the greatest player to ever play the game.
Well, listen, brother, you are amazing and mighty and powerful. All that you're doing, I'm super excited that we've connected, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you bring to the table for yourself and those that you're around and who you serve, man. But he's the amazing, the mighty, the powerful Josh Childress. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.